Hello and welcome to South Africa on 99.94 once again. I'm Neil Manthorpe. My co-host, as always, is Lungani Zama. We'll be talking about Australia's upcoming series against South Africa, obviously, and a whole bunch of other stuff besides. So South Africa on 99.94 is your new home, and if you've been joining us for the last couple of months and it's not your new home, it's your old home for South African content, both on and off the field. So you can join us on YouTube or on the 99.94 app several times every week. And as always, if you get a chance, do check out the new Mitch Johnson show. Thanks for joining us on this week's conversation. As I said, South Africa's tour of Australia is underway. They're playing a 4-day game at the Allan Border Field in Brisbane against a Cricket Australia 11. And it's a pretty strong 11 as well. I was looking at players who have been in contention for a test place. Chris Tremaine, the fast bowler, was certainly a contender a couple of years ago. But it's a strong team. It was described to me by our colleague Robert Craddock, who's covering the game of the Brisbane Courier Mail, as more like an Australian third 11 rather than, an A team or a second 11. So pretty strong team and a decent outing, Zams. It's not first class. It's a big squad. South Africa using pretty much everybody apart from Temba Bavuma, that is. But first of all, your impressions of South Africa now pretty much set in their modus operandi at the beginning of a tour, as in they don't want to play a first-class game. They want everyone to play. So it is a 4-day game, 11 on the field, but I don't know, I think they're using 15 players. And that's something that they've been doing for a couple of years now. Are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, look, I think the reality is schedules these days, manners are so tight that if you're just going to use it as an official first-class game, it's only just the 11 that you pick that's going to get any value out of it. So at least this way, bowlers bowl 10, 15 overs maybe. All your batters can at least get a hit. It's the easiest way to navigate around a limited time period and at least get everybody on the park to familiarize themselves with conditions. And I think, if you look at the way that South Africa batted, a lot of the batters at least got to start and spend some time in the middle, which is important ahead of next week's first test.
Dean Elgar made 100, Kyle Verreynne made 80. There's a lot of people still not quite sure what to make of Kyle Verreynne, the wicketkeeper. He made that brilliant century, didn't he, in his 6th or 7th test match, the second test against New Zealand in Christchurch. And he's made a couple of first-class double hundreds, and he averages like 45. I mean, he's clearly a very, very competent batsman. Is he good enough to bat at number 6? And he has an idiosyncratic technique, as in he doesn't move his feet. He just stands at the crease and seems to rely on a very, very good eye. Have you seen enough of him to have a judgment?
Look, he's going to have to be good enough to bat at 6 because that's the direction the team is taking, firstly. So you've got to trust him. I have seen a fair bit of him to know that the kid can play. He definitely has all the shots. It's the old adage of transferring what you've done in domestic cricket when no one's watching and being able to do that on a bigger stage when there's thousands and thousands, and some very experienced Australians giving you advice from 22 yards. If you can do that, it's a temperament thing, then it's not a talent thing. But if in terms of talent, he definitely can play. When Quinton de Kock left the scene, he was the natural replacement because he's attacking, and he doesn't just score 50s and 60s. He scores double hundreds and he scores them quickly. So, the kid can definitely play.
And I don't think there's any question about his temperament. He's tough. He may have gone to Wynberg Boys High, which is quite well, it was Jacques Callis's school. He was actually, did you know that he was a recipient of one of the Jacques Callis scholarships, which got him to Weinberg? But he's on the tougher end of the private school spectrum, and he is a redhead after all, so he's got a mouth on him.
No, he's not shy of the odd word. The combination of redhead and wicketkeeper and Jacques Callis Foundation, he's got a lot to say, which is good. I mean, the one thing you need from your keepers is character, and to be able to keep the team going, especially in tough sessions. So he's definitely not shy of a word. Everyone he's played with at Province says the same. He's a confident young kid who is well organized at the crease and behind the wickets as well. So good for him, and you hope that the one thing that he doesn't do is change, because he gets a bit of an extended run and plays, at this elevated level of the game at some of the best venues in the history of the game.
Okay, we'll talk about Temba Bavuma's absence from that lineup, or at least absence from the batting lineup in the second part. But just before we end the first half, Lungi Ngidi took 3 wickets up front. Gerald Coetzee, the young fast bowler, who's had a pretty thin time of it in first-class cricket, only a couple of games, but he's... Tony De Zorzi, the Western Province opener, struck 300 against the Knights attack with him in it. But so Rabada bowled, I was going to say first class. It's not first class, but he bowled long form overs for the first time since the end of the last test in England in September. So he's had a pretty extended break. Are you expecting the same 5-man bowling lineup, the 4 quicks with Maharaj the spinner and Marco Jansen batting at 7?
Yeah, I think anything that veers away from that would be too big a risk. At least Jansen has been blooded at this level. You will need some level heads, because Australia, if you've seen any of the way they played against the West Indies, they're gearing up for big summer. I mean, Manislav can't stop scoring runs, and it seems as if Steve Smith competes with him anyway. Dave Warner's got a point to prove, so there's a lot of ominous signs in terms of Australian batting. So the one thing you do need is a little bit of experience and composure from your bowling team, because they're going to come under a lot of pressure.
Okay. I was going to say, we'll talk about Temba Bavuma in just a moment. For now, we'll take a short break.
You're listening to Cricket's Conversation on 99.94. Whatever your team, we have the show for you on podcast, YouTube, or on the 99.94 app. We have India, England, South Africa, West Indies, and now Sri Lanka covered. If you want to find us, the best way is to follow us on social media at 9994DM by downloading the 9994 app or Google 99.94 on podcast. We speak cricket.
So South Africa are halfway through their 4-day warm-up game as we record this. Now, a big talking point for those watching from the outside in, rather than from those on the inside talking outwards, is Temba Bavuma and his fitness to travel to Australia. Once again, cricketers South Africa are being very, very quiet on what is potentially, I suppose, a controversial matter. But Temba Bavuma, we were told, did not bat on the first day as a precaution because he was experiencing some discomfort in that long-standing elbow injury. And then he didn't bat on the second day either. And naturally, Cricket South Africa don't do anything to quell speculation. There is naturally speculation about whether he was carrying an injury into Australia. We were told that he was resting from the first 2 first-class games in South Africa before the squad left for Australia. We were clearly, I thought, led to believe that it was a sort of a mental health rest after the trauma of the T20 World Cup exit But if he was resting that elbow, which he injured months and months ago, which saw him miss the Tour of England, and he went to Australia carrying that injury and they were hoping to manage it, how would that leave Ryan Rickleton feeling, who was told that his long-standing ankle condition precluded him from selection to Australia? He then played for the Lions in those 2 games, scored hundreds in both of them. It's not looking good.
Manners, did you just invent a new word, trauma, incorporating trauma and drama into the same word?
I did. Yes, I did. Trauma. I think it might stick as well.
I could see it working, definitely. I could definitely see it working. But moving on from traumatic new vocabulary. Look, the Temba thing, the double standard of picking one player who is clearly carrying, if you're calling it long-standing injury, that means he's had it for a while, which means the reason he didn't play was because he was injured. And Rickleton must be sitting there, as he should, going, well, an elbow is a bit more precarious than my injury because mine is not stopping me making hundreds. But an elbow, the fact that you've got arrested for 2 rounds of games that you need because you're out of form and then you don't even play the warm-up game. So not only is he low on mental confidence, he's now low on time at the crease. And you're still going to pick him because he's vice captain. I mean, cheapers. It's almost an exact repetition of how he came into the World Cup. Low on runs, low on confidence, and off you go to the Wolves. Like, if you really wanted to rest him, it would have been an ideal time to say, maybe, let's not go to Australia at this point in time. Let's get some confidence back. Let's play some domestic cricket and just sort your head out. You're injured. There's every reason why we should protect you. Because now, if you go to Australia and you do not make runs at all, there's this added pressure of what happened at the T20 World Cup. There's this added complication of an injury that was masked when others were told to stay home because they're unable to travel with an injury. You're just piling up this debit ledger of reasons why he shouldn't be playing, but you're still playing him, and you can't explain it. And oh, by the way, since we're there, we're still waiting for this report or this investigation into the T20 World Cup. I think it's 40 plus days now. I'm sure we'll be waiting until the end of the season and beyond. But it's again that lack of transparency and consistency, which we seem to talk about almost every single time we mention Cricket South Africa and administration, which is it's frustrating. And I'm sure for any cricketer with ambitions to play for South Africa, it's a concern because the messaging is so mixed. So Temba's fine to travel with an injury. Rickleton's not. Rickleton's making runs, Temba's not even playing. But one's allowed to go and one is told to stay home because we can't quite trust your injury in Australia. I mean, I don't know what else you're supposed to deduce from that except double standards.
It's patronising, the attitude. It's both superior and patronising. And I don't know who to apply it to. Is it the team management? Is it the communications department? Does it come from the players? To a degree, I think that they must take some responsibility for that. It is awkward, and one half of me understands that it's a bit tricky, it's a bit awkward. So let's park it in the too hard basket. Let's brush it under the carpet and hope it goes away. They don't seem able to comprehend that these things don't go away. Not only do they not go away, they fester and multiply.
Yeah, it gets worse and worse. It's like you say, they fester, and then when you finally have to front up and actually answer the question, it becomes even more awkward because there's this trail of lies or things that you just left out conveniently. Half truths and half statements and powdery PR puff pieces. The truth is, Temba was injured before he boarded the plane. and you've just made a big show of saying that someone else was carrying some sort of injury, that doesn't stop him from making runs, which is the one thing that you desperately need as a South African team, is runs. If a guy's making back-to-back hundreds, cheapers, you'd kind of think, I can't remember any South African in that top 6 that we've got in Australia right now who's made back-to-back hundreds. I have to think quite far back, but he's doing it. And it just, you're choosing the more complicated route to try and compete, never mind succeed. But you're setting yourselves up for failure, because the question will be asked. And just let the Australian press get wind of this, because they know how important Temba is to that dressing room, and they know how fragile he is at the moment. When you start asking those questions of not just him, but of players around him, did you know that he was injured? Did you know that he was carrying this injury beforehand? Are you surprised that he still came on tour because others couldn't come? How do you answer that? As another player being asked a frank question, how do you answer that legitimately when you're a friend of Rickleton's as well, a teammate of Rickleton's as well, and you know what he's done? It puts everyone in a terrible, terrible position.
And how much can it improve the elbow injury? It's 6 days. But it's 6 days until the first Test match starts. So, I mean, you'd have to bat. I mean, if you were worried about it, then don't field, don't dive around, or field at slip, but you have to bat. You have to bat.
It's so compromising. Any batsman will tell you that, regardless whether it's left elbow or right elbow, your elbow is your breadbasket. That's what keeps you in shape. And for somebody who's so technically correct, it's not as if he relies on raw power or an eye, like we said of Kyle Verreynne. Temba Bavuma is a technically correct, very compact cricketer. That requires your elbow to be high and to be functioning, and if it's buggered, it's buggered. You can't change that, and a week is not going to make too much difference. So you knew, the coach knew, the selectors knew, you all knew, and you've gone a blind faith. Somehow, miraculously, on the transatlantic flight, some miracle is going to happen, and you're going to get to Australia, and somehow you're going to be able to hold a bat. It's mad. It's just completely mad. But like I say, he doesn't pick himself. And well, he kind of does, actually, because as a vice captain, you're almost on the selection panel. There are certain common sense decisions that you should take before, you can see the iceberg ahead. Pull out, because now it becomes just another crisis.
Yeah, and we'll have a little bit more on this in part 3.
If you love the language of cricket and want more, then head over to the 99.94 app and you can hear all of our podcasts and cricket commentary. We're adding new shows all the time and covering cricket series from all over the world. Be the first to hear all of our announcements by following us on social media at 9994DM. Welcome to Cricket's Conversation.
We're on an old familiar hobby horse, and I know that we're both sick and tired of talking about it because we spent years and years and years talking about it, but it is a question that keeps being asked. And we refer back, I'm afraid, to the old box ticking question. I have to say, as I say all the time, and I will continue to repeat it, Temba Bavuma averages close to 45 in the last couple of years. He's been South Africa's most consistent scorer in the last couple of years. Yes, I know that his overall record sees him averaging 34. He's got one Test 100 in 52 Test matches, and that was almost 6 years ago. Yes, I get it. But on current form, he is undoubtedly worth his place in the squad if fit. But again, the question that is asked is he on the plane? Is he in Australia, in Brisbane, because he's our best black batsman? And the box tickers say, sorry, Temba, you're just going to have to bite the bullet and play through the pain because we need you to fulfill our racial targets.
If he is, it's it's scandalous. I mean, you said on form. I mean, I can't really use the word form because he hasn't played Test cricket in quite a while, and what international cricket he has played, he's not really been in form. So it's a bit, you know, it's a bit of a half truth to say he's our best batsman on form.
Yes, form's the wrong word. Form's the
Yeah.
wrong word. What I suppose I mean is, well, it's a long time ago since he played a
Historically,
Test match.
Yeah.
It's over 6 months since he played a Test match. But in the last 2 years of Test matches, he's been the most consistent performer. Yeah, you don't carry form over without playing for 6 months.
Form is 300s in a row, like Manus Labuschagne. That's form. He's our best batsman on historical paper, maybe, but you can't. It's too big a burden. You're scratching around for runs. You're scratching around for just confidence and feel. And if you've been forced on a plane because you have to go because it would look terrible if you're not in Australia, he can't be the person who. Someone said the other day to me, the difference between him and Siya Kolisi is, A, he doesn't have a trophy, but also he doesn't warrant a place in the starting lineup as readily as Siya does. And that's a problem. If there are other options, rather give the other options. This constant pressure of being the one black batsman, it's draining. Yeah, Kaya Zondo's there. He's made runs. He's bided his time. He's fully fit and hungry, desperate actually. Rather play him. He was in England. He got on the park eventually. Rather play him. Don't try and mask the system and use one poster boy and throw him across everything and just hope that miraculously he's gonna. He can't, and especially if he's not even fit. Then you're really, really doing him and the game a disservice. He's clearly not fit. So, firstly, he shouldn't be there. If you're desperate to play a black batsman, then Kaya Zondo's next in line. Play him. Show the shortcomings. If you're so concerned about the shortcomings of the advancements of black batsmen in the last 20 years, play the next best. And if there's such a gulf, it'll become very clear. But Kaya's made runs. He's played international cricket. He's probably a better bet than Temba Bavuma right now, purely because he's fitter and he's played more cricket recently. So why would you not? It says more about how little you trust Kaya that you would pick a half-fit Temba ahead of him. Like that's really scary. Like imagine how he feels. We're back to what we were talking about, Reza Hendricks, that everything becomes so Temba obsessed that you forget the next in line. Are you so dubious about what they bring to the table that you'd rather have a compromised Temba by any means, rather than saying, okay, maybe I should just sit down this first test, let's see how you feel at Boxing Day. No, he must play. He must play. He must be on the park even though he's not going to bat. It's madness. It's complete madness.
A couple of minutes ago, you had a list of questions. If you were able to sit down in front of, I don't know, a panel of the convener of selectors, Victor Mpitsang, and I don't know who else, the team manager, and perhaps, not the coach, because he wasn't at the T20 World Cup. But if you to have a panel of people to ask straightforward questions and demand straightforward, honest answers. You made a couple of them a minute or two ago, as I said, but you'd want to say, was Temba physically 100% fit at the T20 World Cup? Why did he rest from the 2 4-day games for the Lions? Why did he actually rest? And was he fit when he got on the plane? What else would you want straight answers to?
Was it ever a consideration to drop him at any point? Was it ever on the table? In the T20 World Cup, and to rest him for this test match, clearly because he's not fit. Did you ever consider it, or was it he's going by hell or high water? is he so precious to the ecosystem that he has to be there, even if he's not at his best? I mean, cheapers, we've heard about his talismanic leadership, but you're only a good leader when you're at your best. You know, like the very best captains in the history of Test cricket have contributed. You know, like it's all well and good. Like you've still got to go and show that you can too. Otherwise, the whole thing falls apart because it's, you know, show me, don't tell me. Like at some point you have to show, you have to make the runs, and if you can't, you can't, and that's okay. And I don't want to go back on this, but there was a friend of mine the other day who reminded that in India last year, Temba was actually willing to drop himself from the T20 World Cup, and the pressure came from outside to say, no, you cannot, it'll look terrible. But he was ready to sit aside in the last T20 World Cup. I wonder if that was even a consideration now, because it was actually more necessary at this last World Cup than it is, you know, than it was then. And the fact that he made that suggestion and it was turned away out of hand tells you the pressure that if we don't even see, political pressure from his employers and those who employ them, that he has to be the face of this thing, even when he realizes that it's in the best interest of the team. It was shocking to me that he actually went into a team meeting and said, maybe I shouldn't play this game, someone else should. No, absolutely not. No, you have to play. You have to play. No, but I think it's better if somebody else plays at this point. And the fact that he can say that and you can turn around and say, no, you're not serving the interest of South African cricket at that point. It's self-serving. And you're actually harming. And there was a lot going on in that last World Cup because he was batting for Quinton de Kock. He was, you know, there was a lot of things that were happening even before he had to worry about runs. But the fact that at some point in that tournament, he still said, I don't think I'm the best to be playing right now. Should we consider another option? And it was dismissed out of hand. It tells you that there's a lot that we don't know about the pressures that he goes into every game with. Not just as a cricketer, but as you say, as a box-ticking exercise, which is terrible. It's a terrible, terrible place to be.
Was it made clear to you who said no when he suggested that he sits out? We're talking about the T20 World Cup in the UAE, right? Not the one
in
just
the UAE.
in Australia.
In the UAE, yeah.
As you said, when he was fighting, well, he was speaking on behalf of Quinton de Kock, who refused to play or refused to take a knee and therefore refused to play when they were instructed to. So he emerged with massive, massive credibility as a leader and as a statesman and a spokesman for the team from that tournament. Was it ever made clear to you who said, no, you have to play? Was it board, coaching staff, management?
I wouldn't want to descend down that path because it then becomes a bit abundantly clear who it was, you know, that gave that information. But it came from a higher place because, I mean, if you're a captain, you're pretty high. So it can only be people higher than you in the hierarchy who tell you that, no, you have to play. But, you know, you've just said statesman, incredible leader. And that was because of what he was doing, trying to deflect all the negativity away from Quinton de Kock and focus on cricket as a team. But even in the midst of all that, when it finally went back to the cricket, the fact that he had the presence of mind to say, maybe not me right now. And somebody or several people have said, you have to. You have to. And he's going, no, but the cricket decision, what feels right to me is that I shouldn't play right now. I'm willing to sit out. And you're going, no, you can't sit out. It has to be you. It has to be you. It's terrible. That would have done so much more for unifying that team and the people around it and supporters of it. And what it also would have done, which is probably why they've said no, it would have cast a whole new spotlight on this whole approach to transformation and ruthlessly sticking to numbers even when they don't make sense because you don't have options for many reasons, form, fitness, whatever, state of mind. There's a lot of things that go into a cricketer being able to go into a cricket field and performing. So if one of your chosen few says, I'm not at my best, and you still say, yes, you are. You know, it's us leaving a bar and us saying, "Manners, I can't drive." And you go, "Oh, no, you have to. You have to be seen to be driving." No, but I promise you, Manners, maybe just this time, not me. And you go, "No, it has to be you. It has to be you. The car's in your name. If we rock up, even though you're tipsy, if we rock up and I'm driving as sober, but it's not written in your name, it's going to cause a shitstorm because it's in your name, not mine. So it has to be seen to be you." It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. The common sense decision was taken out of his hands. But the fact that he made the offer, I think, shows the actual true level of leadership, which I think is why the players respect him so much, because they know often he's been in an impossible position when he knows, and he's made them know that he knows he's not at his best. But he doesn't have the ability to make that decision and let others play. So who knows what happened in Australia? Who knows? He might have done it again. I don't know. It's terrible.
We don't know because the lack of information from the management and the communication. It's all very, very bleak. Right. In the next pod, we'll be talking about why so few South African icons and former internationals are involved in the domestic game. We'll also be talking about another Australian icon in David Warner. But for now, thanks for listening to South Africa on 99.94. Do please rate, review and subscribe wherever you enjoy your podcasts. You can download the 99.94 app and follow us both on Twitter at Neil Manthorpe and at Whamzam17. For now, cheerio.